Hi everyone, in this tutorial we are going to continue with the Ticket API route point that we created in last tutorial. The last tutorial was already 1 hour long, so I did not include the server-side validation for our form data. But in this tutorial we are going to continue with that Ticket API endpoint and complete with after adding the server-side data validation. So let me quickly show you what we are going to do before we jump into the code. In the previous tutorial we created all of this router endpoint, and in this tutorial we are going to add create new ticket form validation and the reply ticket message form validation in our form validation middleware, like this and this one. And what it does is that client has to send subject, sender, and message. If they forget any of this piece of data and try to send the request, it will say error, the subject is missing, that means subject is required. And or if they try to send something extra piece of data that server is not expecting and try to send that with the form, it will also say that it's an error, the message extra is not allowed. So that is the validation we are going to do with this create new ticket. And now if you send the proper ticket here, it will say that new ticket has been created, and this apply API endpoint only expects message and sender. If you try to send extra piece of data here, it will again reject and say it's not allowed. And if you send the proper form message that server is expecting, if you send it, it will say your message has been updated. And if you go to database and refresh the database, now you can see we should have 2 messages here under the conversation, and this is the second reply message that we just sent through our client here. Okay, that's what we are going to do in this tutorial. Hey, if you are here for the first time and if you don't know me, my name is Prem from Dented Code. I create tutorial related to full stack web development. And if you are interested in full stack web development, please subscribe the channel and turn on all the notifications. So with that saying, let's jump into the computer. So rule of thumb, never ever trust the data coming from client. Make sure always do server-side validation, so which we didn't do in last tutorial. So if you see in our API endpoint, we only need to do server-side validation test in two URI, that is on post, because we are getting the new ticket details, and the put method where we're getting the reply message. If you remember, we use our postman to send the data to make the call to that API. So if you check our post method in our ticket system, we have sent 3 pieces of data: subject, sender, and message. We need to validate before we process to the storing in the database. And similarly, we don't have anywhere else to do anything, but in our put we need to check message and sender. Let's work on that. So if you go to our file structure, in the couple of previous tutorial we created form validation middleware for the passwords. So we are going to continue writing our middleware for this ticket form validation as well in the same file. So but I'm going to quickly run through the file, what we need and why we need. So in order for us to use the Joy, we need to of course install this Joy package and require it as a Joy. And then what we can do is simply we can define the property that we want to validate to. For example, if you have some email coming through our requested body, we can definitely write something like email. This is, you don't have to type email. Okay, for example, if here we are checking email, we are defining email here, and we putting the constraint here. We are putting email just to like make sure that we know which one we are using or applying to. It doesn't have to be email. In our case today, we are going to first thing we are going to do create new ticket validation. So let's create here. So let's do it so that you understand. So I'm gonna write a function called create new ticket validation, and we always receive request response next, and is an arrow function. And here we need to define schema. So what schema is that you need to make a set of the object that defines what data is coming and what is the data type and length. So that's the constraint you want to put in our schema, so that when we pass our actually coming data, it will check against our schema. If everything matches according to the defined constraint, it will pass the validation, otherwise it will fail the validation. And definitely once the validation is failed, we can respond back to client saying, hey, your data is not valid. Okay, so let's do simply like this is, I would say, schema. You can say anything you like here. And the way we create a schema is we will say joy.object there are different way to do it, but I like to do this way. This is much cleaner way. And here you need to provide like what are the data coming and what is the validation criteria. So if you go to our client, for example, we are working on our post, right? So we are getting subject, sender, and message. So let's say we want to receive the subject, sender, message. So these are the data we are going to receive, right? But here we are not passing the data, so we need to pass the validation constraint here for those one in order. So to do that, what we can do, we can define on the top here the constraint so that we can reuse. For example, pin here, we have a number and it's minimum this number, maximum this number, and it's required. So now we can use pin anywhere in the file. So we can do same thing. So when we're receiving this object, the property, we can define subject, message. Okay, let me copy this one. Let's, for example, define all of them here. So I'm gonna say const, let me quickly do this. Okay, so this one equals to dot, what's the type? It's going to be string type. That's the method, and we are basically chaining them with dot here. So do we have a min length? Okay, yes, let's put 2. And do we have max? You want to constraint, so you can provide the max length, maybe 50 character subject. And this is basically, you need to understand, like when you're providing some constraint in your database, when you're creating the new record, so make sure you don't go over that value. So always try to match the database the definition. So, and is it required? Yes, it is required, and you do so. And basically we can copy same exactly for sender and message, and we can change the value, maybe message, let's say 1000 character, and required. We can do so like for each of them and pass later on here. Or what you can do, you can also categorize them. Let's say if we have some sort of string only coming, and this one has some sort of, let's say, minimum and maximum character allowed. So for example, I would say here short string, and in short string I have it's a string type, minimum 2, maximum 50. I will not say require here. And if we do that, and okay, I'm gonna do here long string, it's the string type, minimum 2, maximum 1000 now, and let's say not do require yet. And if we do now, we can utilize this one everywhere. So wherever you need, let's say some string coming here, in our case subject, sender, they both are short string, so we don't have to define these two different variable up here for the constraint. So rather now we can use short string. And if I'm not saying here require like so here, because if there are some string value coming from client but that is not required to test, that means you can use straight away this one as it is. But if it is required, simply you can pass this required value later on chaining with this one when we provide down here. Let me show you. Let's pass this short string. This is the condition to validate the subject, and same thing with the sender. Is a sender is the short string as well, but the message is long string. You can simply do so now. And if you want to do validation now we need to do the, let's say, value. Basically when the validation happens, it will return a big object with the value and error if there is an error. So simply do value equals to schema dot validate. That's the function we are going to call to validate. So basically this is the schema now we have provided here, and there we are running the validate to validate the data. So as you know, our data always come in request.body. When we send the value in our through our form here, this value always comes in request.body if we send as a post method. So now we are passing this value. So what we're saying that is, whenever we have value coming here, we will have a subject, sender, and message, and they have this kind of validation, but they are not required. So let's do the test and then you'll come to know. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to do console.log value. It's going to be a little bit messy. Let's do if value.error, then simply we do console.log error, and after that here let's return from here only for now. Okay, and I'm going to do value. So we are doing the validation here, and if there is an error in that value, we will console then log. Okay, and then we just returning from here because it is a middleware. we can respond back to client from this middleware. So let's export this function, save the file, and let's go to our ticket router, which one should be under router, ticket router, and here let's import on the top of the file. So simply say const the create new ticket validation. Oops, not there, it should be outside. So do require and put the file path. So it's a middleware, oops, middleware slash the form validation and this function. Now guys, this is the middleware. So the way we use middleware is like how we are using the user authorization middleware. So there's one thing you need to put into account now. Do you want to authorize the user before doing the form data validation, or you want to do form data validation after the user is authorized? In our case, I would like to do user, okay, in generally you should use user valid authorization first and then do the form validation, but here I want to first do the user validation just to show you so that we can check few things. We don't have to go through one more function. So now let's go to our post method where we have a create new ticket where we're supposed to receive subject, sender, and message, and now pass this middleware here and separate by comma. So the way it works is that as long as the express catches this router, it will send the request to this middleware and you do whatever you want to do. And if you want to pass your express to next middleware, we can do so from this middleware. Otherwise we can return client from here as well. So let's save that file and let's go to our client here, and if we send this data, let's see what's going to happen. Okay, there is no problem. If you see in our console, we are doing, let me put this one on the side, we don't need this one. Okay, so if you go in our form validation, so we are doing console log dot on the if it is error only. Let's do one more time. I'm gonna show you what's in the value accounts. Save it, send it again. Okay, here I just want to show you this is the post method and we are posting data to this ticket method, and this is the data sets. So now we have message saying value is not defined. Of course, that's an error. When you send that, now you're gonna get everything value here, but you don't have error here. So let's assume actually subject is required, right? Now we can pass, as I said before, you can, if you always know the long string or short string always going to be required, you can pass required here like so. Or that means if you have any not required field, you have to create another variable here and then provide this validation schema. So let's take this out, and you can that now also pass to here like so. And if I save this one, and if we go to client and let's say we remove the subject, sorry, here remove the subject, and if you send this data, see what happens now. Here you can see there's a typo again. I'm pretty bad at typing, that's my problem. Okay, let's send the request here, and now you have see here a little bit different message. Now it's like saying we have the error object now, not only value. So now in error object it's saying, okay, this is the original value coming, and this is the detail message saying subject is required, because we have mark here as required. So that means we need to send the subject in our body here. If we send the subject in our body here, and now again if we send the request to create the new ticket, we will not have this error message. Let's send. See, the message is gone, and that means there is no problem. See, it's saying like subject is required. So now that's coming from the error validate message. So now we can simply always respond from here. Instead of sending value, now we can say status error, and let's say message is just provide the value dot error dot message. So this is actually goes inside here now, because if we have error in the data, then we return this, so that we don't want to execute the any code further. And now if there is not error, then we can call our next method here. What it does that it will forward our middleware to the next middleware here through this one, and then if everything fine in this middleware, and then our router goes to this part of the function and then do all the conversation part. Okay, that's probably done. Okay, before we testing the validation for post, what I wanted to do is I want to create the middleware for the reply message as well and provide here, and then we'll do testing together. So let's do that. So let's go to our form validation. Since you know, when we are replying the ticket, we are doing patch call, put call, and we are only sending message and sender. We don't need the subject. So now we can reuse the validation condition we have provided here, reuse to our another validation as well. So here I'm gonna do is copy this whole function. Yeah, I'm gonna say reply message validation. We're going to again receive request response next, and in schema we only need, oops, hang on guys, so we require all of them here. Okay, subject is required, and sender is required, and message is required as well in our create new ticket validation. So we are going to do same thing here. Message is required, and if we leave like this, it's gonna throw an error because we are not sending the subject anymore, so which we don't need it. Let's move that, and again call this schema validation and call the validate function and pass the requested body. And then again it's gonna be exactly same. If there is an error, we can basically, instead of console log all the value, we can simply console log the errors, and if there is no error, then we will forward this middleware to the next middleware so that we can proceed to complete our reply functionality. So let's pass that middleware to our update reply message. So what happening in this message is that we are receiving message and sender, and we are updating that message and sender in our database. So let me open the database and also show you. Okay, this is our database, and the validation is for tickets. So the create tickets will create the ticket like so, and the reply message will add the message on this conversation, like it will add on array every time the client or the admin or operator replies onto this message. And let's go and check it. So let's save this file. Okay, there is an error that to be fixed first. Okay, reply ticket validation is not defined because we have forgotten to import. So let's go to the top of the file where we have imported create new ticket validation and pass here, because both of the functions are defined in this file. So now the error should be gone. Let's make a call to create new ticket. Go to our post where we are creating new ticket. Here we need to have a subject, sender, and message, and go to header. In authorization, update the value with that new JSON web token. And if we try to now go to our body, and if we just simply remove this person and send the request, it's gonna throw an error saying subject is required. So it also throws the error here saying subject is required as the error list. Okay, let's put back the subject and now send the request. Now it's saying now new ticket has been created. If we go to our database and if we refresh this ticket, now we should have another ticket. Okay, if you see in our conversation array, we have a initial message here. Now let's reply onto this ticket. So let's copy this ticket ID, because we need ticket ID to reply on this ticket. And now go to the put method and pass the ticket ID which we just copied from, and we also need the JSON web token to authorize user before we storing the data. So go back again and update the header section, authorization value, and put the new JSON web token. Go to body and we have this message. Let's say this is the second reply, and if you send that, it's saying message has been updated successfully. If you go to database and if you refresh this data, now in our conversation area, now we have two data, actually two objects. So if you go to the second one, which it says this is the second reply, so it's all working fine. But let's say client forgot to actually send the sender, and if we try to send this data, now it will say, oops, okay, this is an error because it's invalid JSON if you leave the trailing comma in the object. So let's send this one, and it will say message sender is required, and if you go in our database, there is no change in here. So now we have a very strong validation. Now client cannot send anything else extra. Okay, one more thing I want to show you. So let's say client send this one correct message, but client also say something extra message, So let's say he just sends some random message, and if he tries to send this data, Now it will say it still is error because the extra is not allowed, because in our validation we have only nominate sender and message to be verified. So that means this is how we put the constraint to verify data in server side. So it's all working. That's all we need to do to make it work. So I'm just going to quickly push this code into Git Repo for you guys to see. Let me remove this and this, save this file. I'm going to say git add commit. So I have said server side validation added for create new ticket and reply message on the ticket. Okay, and I'm just gonna do git push here. The code should be available straight away for you to see in our Git repo. And before I finish this tutorial, I want to show you one more thing that we need to do is update our Trello. So we have done a new ticket client API. Now we can mark as, even before doing, we can say now done, test ticket client API done, fetch all ticket API done, close ticket client done, update ticket client is done as well. Okay, great. Now the next thing is we are going to do the add Redux and integrate that backend API with our front-end React application and add the login logout functionality with JSON Web Token as well. So it's gonna be quite exciting and fun to do the coding. Okay, thanks for watching, guys. Hope you liked the tutorial. If you did, then please give me a thumbs up. And in the next tutorial we are going to continue on our React application which we have stopped a while ago, and we'll try to integrate our API endpoint and then do a lot of fun stuff. So guys, till then, again, code every day, be awesome, and I'll see you in the next tutorial. Bye for now.